Put your hands together. Give a big round of applause. All right, just to make sure we connect with each one of you possibly, we've got delegates from different parts of the world. We welcome you. Namaskar, swagat hai aap sabhi logon ka. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our moderator, Shiv Aroor, Indian journalist and writer, who will be indeed introducing to our speaker. Pleasure to have you here, Mr. Shiv. Thank you so much, and thank you, Mr. Akis, to join us. Put your hands together, give a big round of applause. So for the ones who's present out here, who's just walked in, thank you so much for joining us for Global Investor Meet Invest Karnataka 2025. There's lots we're going to grab out of this interesting session, which will be moderated by Indian journalist and writer, very well-known Mr. Shiv Aroor. Let's give a big round of applause, and the session is all yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Asif, and it's a big honor to be here at the Invest Karnataka Summit. I know it's a hugely important event, so thank you very much for having me. It's always a challenge to do the post-lunch session because everyone's got their bellies full and they're feeling a little sleepy, but I will do my very best, and it's not going to be difficult, believe me, because the guest we have today is one of the most interesting people you're ever going to hear from, most certainly at this summit and most certainly this year, because there is so much happening. For an audience of this kind, I don't think the company that this guy belongs to needs any introduction, because if you are at Invest Karnataka, then you have heard of nothing. It's a company that has completely disrupted the smartphone space. It's a company that has a pedigree of one of the largest phone makers in the world, and it's a company that has the eyes of the biggest firms in the world looking very closely at its every move because of how adventurous it has been. So Akis, Evangelidis, if I pronounced that correctly, my apologies if I didn't. I'd like to just quickly start by making one small confession. I'll start with a show of hands. Is everyone awake in the audience right now? Everyone's listening? Okay, how many of you used to use BlackBerry phones? Okay, this is Invest Karnataka, so quite a few. How many of you use an iPhone? Okay, a lot. Okay, so Akis, I've used an iPhone for the last 12 years now. And ever since Invest Karnataka invited me to do this session, and since I started doing my research on you for this event, I might be changing phones for the first time.
That's good. Hopefully more people to do.
I'm very happy to say, just before I took my flight to come here, I ordered a nothing phone. So I'm going to be getting a nothing phone in a few days from now. I couldn't bring it here with me, but I was impressed enough to actually even think about exiting the Apple ecosystem. So congratulations, well done on that. But Akis, I'd like to start by asking you about nothing. Everybody loves the counterintuitiveness of the name. The name is nothing, and it's so memorable. How did the name Nothing come about? I'd like to start that out by asking you that.
Sounds good. Before diving into it, just out of curiosity, how many of you have heard about Nothing before? Oh, wow. Decent crowd.
This is a Karnataka audience. Of course they've heard of Nothing.
All right. Yeah, Nothing. I've been getting this question quite a lot. I guess it remains top of mind, which ticks the first box in terms of the goal of the name for the company. But basically, yeah, when we started Nothing, I'm half Greek. I was born in Athens, and I was putting an Excel list with like different names in the Greek mythology and so on. But every time I would get to a name that had a meaning or that could work, either the social media handles weren't available or the .com wasn't available. So we kind of kept on brainstorming for like 2 weeks. We weren't getting anywhere and so on. And as users, we're thinking, okay, what's what's like the end state of technology? You know, how it should feel like. And then Carl Pei, co-founder and CEO of Nothing, he eventually came up with, yeah, I've been discussing this with my sister, like, what about nothing? You know, at the end of the day, you know, you want a technology to be embedded all around you, there to kind of empower you, leverage it when you need it, but it shouldn't be like in your way. And I think it's a very interesting concept. You know, nowadays, technology sometimes it sort of divides us, disconnects us from the world around us. So be working on the product ecosystem that's like super well integrating all around you, serving you, empowering you to do more versus kind of distracting you from the world, yet feel like nothing, felt like a good long-term vision to be working towards. And then we said, okay, why not? Then it took a few days to kind of grow in us. Then we checked on Instagram. You can register the name then. On Twitter, was called Twitter back then, the handle wasn't being used for a few years. So we just emailed a few friends at Twitter and Instagram, and after 24 hours, we had the two @nothing handles. We managed to get the nothing.tech at a good price, and we're like, all right, let's go for it.
By the way, Akis is not new to India. He's been to India many times before, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, he's called Akis Bhai in the office. You know, tell us the story behind that. You know, even Carl Pei, who's the founder and you know formerly of OnePlus, he's also called Carl Bhai on Twitter, which became a big viral story. So why are you Akis Bhai already?
No, I think, I mean, it was a year ago. We're ramping up to launching our Phone 2A. Back then, there was a lot of like tension on social media. Everyone was expecting for a product. And I think it came up from just Carl replying to someone, okay, bye. And then all of a sudden, that person say, okay, Carl, bye. And then Carl changed his Twitter name. I changed my Twitter name. And it became a thing online. The internet took over and did the rest.
So I'm going to call you Akis Bhai for the rest of this interaction.
Sounds
because,
good.
Because you know, Nothing is a company that has survived possibly the most brutal industry in the world right now, smartphones. It's the only, you know, one of maybe a small handful of companies that has been able to survive for more than a few years. And not just survive, but do really well and make a big splash. So I wanted to ask you about that. You know, you started out in 2020. What's that journey been like? How much of a struggle has it been? You know, you started big in terms of, you know, the way you marketed Nothing. The name itself made a splash for itself. But how difficult has it been lasting this long?
Yeah, actually, no one in the last 10 years entered this industry successfully, being an independent brand. Of course, there are other sub-brands as part of much bigger groups, which make things a lot easier. But as an independent brand, we are the only one that managed to do that successfully in the last 10 years. And yeah, it's been a hell of a journey, for sure. Survive was one of our core founding values. We're like, okay, we need to get to the next year, to then eventually get bigger, have more product capabilities, and do more. So that's definitely been at the core of it. But the way we approached it, so when we started Nothing, the whole thing was, I guess from a user standpoint, we didn't feel excited about what the industry had to offer back then. Everything looked the same. There was no lot of negativity around tech. All the products, you know, the iterations were minor, just extra megapixel, extra kind of gigahertz, whatever. So for us, it was more, you know, doing it for ourselves in the way kind of we wanted to bring back that excitement we had when we, you know, saw the first kind of iPhone keynote launch, or you know, those first magic moments interacting with products like the iPod. And basically the journey started from there, and then we realized as we were talking to more and more people felt the same way at us. They thought it would be crazy to even try to take a stab at it. But sort of that gave us a lot of confidence in terms of getting this started. We had like Tony Fadell, the inventor of the iPod, that was part of our seed round. We had Casey Neistat, you know, we were watching his videos. We're like, fuck yeah, let's go guys, I think you are onto something. And then, but then it was, okay, where do we start? So each year in the last kind of 4 years has been quite strategic. So year one, it was about building a proof of concept. Again, people were calling us crazy to even think about entering in this industry. Everyone feels it's oversaturated, competing against the biggest brands in the world. So our first proof of concept for the year one was to bring a product to market successfully. And here, quite rapidly, we gravitate around design differentiation. Everything looked the same. It was really hard to identify which product is from which brand. So when we went to the design experimentation, we had set a guiding principle. From 2 meters away, you need to be able to recognize a nothing product without looking at the logo. So we came up with this kind of semi-transparent design identity. Then we decided to enter with the TWS market, the true wireless earbuds. And here, we introduced our kind of transparent design, which created like shit ton of hype back in the days. I remember I was, when we started selling on the first day, I was at the beach with my wife, and when the product went on sale, we had 100,000 people on our website. We're like, so order some champagne. But then I didn't know what was to come next, because it was just the start of the journey with a lot more struggles. So this product went really well. We sold over 500,000 products, so that it allowed us to raise more capital and start the real deal, the smartphone. And the smartphone, why so many brands have failed, is the value chain required to bring a smartphone to market is extremely complicated. And there is a big and, there is no room for mistakes. If there is one element that falls apart, you go bankrupt straight away. There is no way you can make this up. So it's starting from product development, all the way down to kind of your go-to-market strategy, all the way down to the marketing. Like if the initial steps are there, but then your marketing fails, you don't create enough demand, you have overstock, cash flow issues, and it's game over. So with Phone 1, it was extremely challenging because we had to build a supply chain, we had to develop product, build the teams, get ready with all the sales partners and so on. And to make things easier, it was in the middle of COVID. But yeah, thank God we managed to make it work. It was quite an intense period for us, and definitely survival mode. But yeah, we managed to launch the smartphone on time, which is an important part, because just for context, as a new entrant in an industry that no one has managed to enter successfully in the last 10 years, all the supply chain partners have lost confidence in terms of investing in a new entrant. So when you start, you got to pay everything up front. All the components, everything up front, then it gets shipped to you. You then need time to manufacture, then you ship to partners, then you go on sale, and those partners are huge already, so they have payment terms with like 60 days, and your cash has gone like 6 months before, and you get it 6 months after, if the launch goes well. So if anything breaks down, if the product doesn't kind of get developed on time and the timeline gets pushed, you go bankrupt. If your marketing doesn't work well, you go bankrupt, and so on and so on. So anyway, we managed to get through all this for Phone 1. We launched the product. Again, a lot of buzz at the time in the market. Did extremely well. We sold over 700,000 products. And then this led us to kind of year 3. So now that we had successfully entered the smartphone industry, it was then, okay, raising a bit more money, building an internal product capabilities, because for Phone 1 we're relying on a lot of external partners. So we really kind of spent a lot more time on the product, refining, and sort of a lot of learnings came through Phone 1 as well. And eventually we launched Phone 2, which was, to me, the sort of proof point that we could deliver on the flagship level experience. I remember MKBHD, who is the big tech reviewer in the US and has very direct judgments on product. He gave us the most improved smartphone of the year. So that was quite encouraging. And then what happened across the 3 years, we had then built this very unique offering for nothing, both on the hardware design level, but also on the software. As with Phone 2, we introduced our own kind of software version of Android. Last year, we had to scale. We had, okay, you've built a strong kind of positioning. Now you need to prove that you can scale as a brand. So we took this kind of very unique product offering that we've managed to refine and continuously develop over the first 3 years, and then start bringing this into other price segments, including with the Phone 2A and our sub-brand CMF. And thankfully it worked, because historically those price segments are only focusing on value for money, who can have the most megapixel for the best value, and so on and so on. But there is this kind of price war, which is getting a bit ridiculous, and to some extent with no added value. So for us, our assumption was, okay, we can actually break through in those segments, just bringing that kind of unique user experience. So we did that with Phone 2A. Again, it was another key milestone for us. We were all a bit stressed going into the launch, but after 24 hours, we had sold 100,000 units. And then we doubled this up with the CMF Phone 1 that launched a few months later. And overall, last year, we were the fastest smartphone and audio company in the world. And we're here today, and hopefully we'll be doubling up in 2025.
Akis, like you said, the smartphone industry, has just these small sort of incremental improvements with each model that comes in from the big guys. A better camera, a faster chip. It's been years since we saw anything really big in terms of a usability leap or an interface leap. As a company that is design forward and marries aesthetics with the user experience, just give us an inside view of what a day is like at Nothing. What do you guys talk about? When you and Carl are sitting across a table or in your room or on your couch or whatever it is, and you're thinking about, okay, we've sold these 100,000 phones, and everyone's buying it with the smartest. We were the fastest growing last year. What does a conversation about that next step look like?
That's a good question. I guess it's always about balancing short-term and long-term. In early years was definitely day-to-day, keep going to survive another day. Now that we've proven ourselves, that our teams are a lot bigger, I think the opportunity for us is actually infinite if you think about it. The smartphones is a gateway to everyone's product ecosystem. So if we do well there is just so much more to be done. But then also, what we came to realize, when we were first thinking, okay, how can we just make a product look different in year one, that kind of mindset was just not about how the product looks. What triggered it eventually start building within our organization this kind of innovation muscle, because it was more about kind of rethinking everything. The hardware design, but then the software design, and everyone has been developing this very kind of creative muscle, trying to look at things in different ways that are currently being made. And you realize that bigger players, they have a billion-dollar business that are working, right? So they don't have a big incentive to do things drastically different or taking a huge bet. Whereas for us, that's what we've been doing since day one. And I think you were talking about user interface, and I think that's where the biggest opportunity is. Ever since the first iPhone was launched, the sort of app experience it has evolved in a way, but not drastically. Largely the same. So, kind of rethinking, okay, what that's going to be in the future, especially now with kind of AI coming across, and we're having a lot of fun. And I think the opportunity is huge to kind of rethink the whole way of the kind of smartphone interface and how we're interacting with it and how it will be delivering more value to you and less about being extracting value, because that's also a key issue that ever since we started Nothing, we've been trying to solve. Like smartphones, to some extent, with time, have been kind of extracting value. It's disconnecting you from your friends, families. It's sort of getting you, like you unlock your smartphone to do A, and all of a sudden you do B. So this is where we had the glyph interface. We introduced a monochrome mode as well on the apps that will kind of eradicate the colorimetry of the apps that are being kind of engineered to grab your attention, to have a more intentional smartphone usage. Because I do think there is a lot of work to be done, to ensure that technology is there to empower you to do more versus kind of extracting value from you. And now, yeah, that's what we kind of bouncing around, what the future could look like.
One of Nothing's most well-known and beloved innovations has been the glyph interface with LED strips designed to sort of demarcate your attention while minimizing your workload in terms of your phone, which is again, like everything to do with Nothing, it's counterintuitive because it wants to make you use your phone less and give you more information as quickly as possible, which is actually amazing. And that's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to my Nothing phone more than anything else. A reason not to pick up the phone, really. But, clean design, Akis, clean design and that design aesthetic isn't new. You've seen Apple play with that for a number of years. Apple is acknowledged as a company that is, in some ways, mastered, minimalist design. I've seen an interview of yours where you've said some of the design aesthetical choices that Nothing has taken hark back to early Apple days as well. So, how do you really compare the two? Is Apple really, unable to move ahead of its current design aesthetic, in your view? Are they looking at you closely?
I think, they have no incentive to change what they're doing. It's going quite well for them. But I think that's where opportunity lies. It sort of became the villain that they wanted to fight at first. And that's where I think there is room for a challenger brand, to take a bolder approach. A lot of things have evolved in the past, 20 years, and what's working for them is definitely not going to work for us. And therefore, that's where opportunity is. We can come in to have a much bolder approach on what we do, starting with our design. If anything, I wouldn't call our design kind of minimalistic. The whole thing was, with our design, we wanted to trigger a sense of emotion. When you look at design, you kind of react to it versus just kind of the phone sitting there. And then, that approach in terms of having a bolder take is not only on hardware but software as well. And that's where, for us, the opportunity will be in the future. So definitely doing less of what Apple is currently doing.
What's the in terms of user experience of Nothing phones? What's the best thing you hear from your users? What's the feedback that you love or value the most from your users?
Feedback, generally speaking, or what people that buy our phones, what do they prefer?
People who buy your phones and use your phones.
Yeah. So software is number one in our Net Promoter Score survey, which is great because that's the core of the user experience, and software is key to kind of build affinity and retention. So this is actually quite important, and I'm quite excited about this because we've been kind of working aggressively on software for just the past 3 years. Now we're scaling up the teams quite drastically to kind of bring even a bolder approach around the whole user interface of our smartphone, and I think it's a big opportunity. But yeah, mostly it's Nothing OS comes at the top of the user satisfaction. And also saw a big 91 Mobile in India. They run a survey like your favorite software experience, and Nothing OS was on top of iOS. So I think we're heading in the right direction, and design, of course.
In an age where marketing takes up so much space, there's so much competition for people's attention because of social media and influencers and that age, Akis. Nothing has been very aggressive from the get-go in terms of, in some ways, reinventing how to market a smartphone. There have been lots of guerrilla tactics, a lot of asymmetric, unconventional marketing. That clearly was designed to kind of kick up the dust of the industry and not take a conventional route. Give us a sense of that, because you're the head of marketing as well. So the way nothing has marketed itself basically flows from this guy. So tell us about how that happened.
So the way we think about marketing, and I guess I highly advise for everyone in the room that's running any kind of B2C business, is you need to be looking for asymmetric advantages in the way what's working for current players. You won't be able to compete. Eventually you can use some of it, but you won't be able to do better. They have infinite more resources, infinite more budgets. So you need to think of ways that you're going to build a differentiation and at much higher efficiency cost. So for us, I guess it started in two ways: seeing where our competitive advantage lies. We are a brand. We are arguably the only founder-led brand with, especially with CallPay. So that was one. Then the other one is we're a startup at the time, so we are very agile. So we can look at best practices across other industries and kind of incorporate at a much faster pace and trial and error them than much larger companies. So, and then the third one, which I think is almost obvious, but to be honest, a lot of companies, especially in the smartphone space, don't get it right, is just understanding your users. I think Gen Zs are looking for, authenticity. They want to relate to brands. And I think the way kind of marketing has been operated has just been marketing from 10 years ago. It hasn't evolved with this kind of new generation, which is driving the culture. So for us, quite rapidly, we focused on content. We were documenting everything we were doing early days, giving a very transparent view of our companies and how things were going, and also providing very exclusive insight of the behind the scenes. Big corporations have this kind of corporate red tape where, they cannot disclose things, or if they disclose, it's under NDA, everyone needs to be PR trained and all that stuff, and it just slows down, and it just kind of create that distance with the end users. So for us, content has been a key focus, showcasing the behind the scenes, and also creating content that people relate to. Even Carl has been reviewing a lot of competitive products across our YouTube channel, which people really enjoy. They love it. They find it very refreshing. So this has been a key thing. And then the other one, as a new brand, community. I think there has been a lot of, excuse my French, but a lot of bullshit when it comes to kind of community in a kind of community management in a truthful way. And for us, when you as a new brand, we couldn't succeed on our own. We need to have a user base very strong, and that we turn them into advocates. And that started by kind of blurring the line between people and the company. So we started when we closed our Series A with Google Venture, we allocated $1.5 million for our initial fans and supporters to have skin in the game. So we wouldn't just look at them as people that support the brand from the sideline, but okay, you guys are engaged, come on board, put whatever you want, and then hopefully you'll have that financial upside, which by now they do, for the ones that entered, the massive upside for the ones that entered back in early 2021. So yeah, we had this 1.5 million allocation. It actually ran out in under 54 seconds. So it was quite nuts. And since then, we've been kind of integrating community more and more into the company. And this year, last year, we did quite an ambitious co-creation project where basically our users designed a limited edition of Phone 2A. And this, as cool as it sounds, it does require a lot of investment, both financial and also team bandwidth capacity to pull it off. But for us, it was, again, kind of remaining authentic to this kind of community engagement we had set ever since we started the company. And to a final note, what we also did to ensure we in check with the user at all time, from those people that have invested, every year we elect a community board observer, and that person sits in our board meetings and just kind of funnels through all the user feedback to ensure that at all time we're going to be in check with the end users. Because I think that's, if you look at bigger companies out there, a lot of them have just lost sight. You know, they're shipping millions of products, they're doing all those big advertisement campaigns, and so on, but they don't really resonate across our audience. And this is where I think it's a huge opportunity for us to almost become a generational brand amongst the Gen Zs.
No, I'm gonna dig a little deeper into the the community-driven model in just a bit. But when you said that nothing as a startup is able to do some of those things that the larger legacy brands maybe hesitate to do, and you also said they have no reason to because they're doing so well and they're such giant companies. But in that case, you'd be the best person to ask, Akis, which is, what is the next big thing in smartphones? Apart from AI, I'll come to AI separately, but what is the next big thing that users can look at as far as smartphones are concerned? India is, one of the world's biggest smartphone markets. Or give us a list of things that you think will become realities in the next few years in smartphone devices.
Yeah, I think when it comes to form factor of the smartphone, I don't think it's going to be changing anytime soon, to be honest. I think that's going to be the case. But what will evolve and where we're quite bullish on is on the overall kind of user experience and user interface, especially with kind of AI coming into the picture. There's just so much opportunity, and I think it's not going to be, we've been talking about IoT and ecosystem for the longest period of time. But it's not just about like syncing your photos and all that stuff. Actually creating that ecosystem and that sort of fluid user experience that can shift from mobile to audio to different set of products, and eventually creating that ecosystem that we were mentioning at the beginning, where eventually everything feels like nothing. I think that's where things are heading. So not so much from a pure hardware standpoint, but really from a user interface innovation. And I think that's, now with AI, the opportunity is huge.
Is nothing going to, stay with just smartphones for the moment, and your ear devices, or are you thinking of other devices as well?
I mean, we still, we don't take anything for granted. I think there is still a long way to go, and just the fact that not everyone has raised their hand when I ask about nothing, we still have a lot of work to be done. But I think it's first ensuring we kind of scale our smartphone business. That's the sort of gateway to that kind of ecosystem for people. And then once you crack this, then the sky is the limit, to be honest. If you manage to crack the smartphone industry, then there is just so much more you could do. So it's more about after strategically kind of see which product comes when, but arguably you could do everything.
In terms of the point you made about the nothing ecosystem, Android, Apple, they've been able to create their mobile ecosystems. Is that the direction that nothing wants to head into, to create a kind of universe of its own?
Yeah, for sure. Everyone is working towards it, but I think the execution will be key. And I think for us, we had always this notion of kind of redefining the relationship between technology and people. And that's where we're kind of quite excited to think what's the sort of experience of tomorrow is going to be like when it comes to overall kind of ecosystem play. And that's where we kind of actively working towards.
In about 10 minutes from now, I'm going to open it to audience questions. So for the next 10 minutes, just think of questions that you may want to ask Akis about this, and I'll finish my conversation with him in the next 10 minutes. So just think of some questions. We've spoken about the design part, we've spoken about the ecosystem, the community-driven, thought process at Nothing. Sustainability, since you mentioned Gen Z, sustainability is an issue that appeals to them in a very, very big way. It did to the previous generation as well, but now it's even more, cause-related, wanting to be part of a, brand that stands for more than just being a device. How much is that part of the way Nothing wants to do things? E-waste and things like that are big issues.
No, no, 100%. And I think, yeah, you cannot just start in a company in the 21st century without keeping that top of mind. And for us, it has been top of mind ever since we started the company. Now, I'm not too much into the sort of greenwashing, so eventually you haven't seen us like blasting crazy across all our advertisement and so on. But we've been doing all the background work necessary. So, and this, you know, as you kind of become a much bigger player, you have much more leverage, you can start gradually drive that change. But so we started first, it was just about tracking, just tracking and ensuring we have the processes to be tracking our carbon footprint across a whole organization. Then we did the first mistake with Phone One. We start buying carbon footprint to offset that. You know, we have a net zero product, but at the end of the day, who cares? You know, that's not very meaningful when it comes to sustainability. So we a bit looked ourselves in the mirror and, you know, just kind of rethink the whole thing, how we should be approaching sustainability. So ever since, we've been gradually introducing more recycled materials, more kind of, you know, more processes across our kind of production facilities and so on to gradually not be offsetting by buying carbon footprint, not offsetting our carbon footprint, but rather how we can reduce it. So each product now, ever since we launched For One, we've been reducing the carbon footprint of our products by, again, you know, bringing more sustainable materials and so on across our whole process. So, and now again, we're going to be launching our new phone, and it's once more our smartphone with the lowest carbon footprint. So we've been doing all that in the background. And as you get bigger, of course, we want to do much bigger things, but it will come with more leverage. You know, once you have dozens of millions of products, you have a lot more leverage to change the supply chain when it comes to, again, using like sustainable material and so on. So hopefully we started our journey 4 years ago, and the bigger we get, the more we're going to be able to change.
You know, you said Apple became the villain that they wanted to defeat. Is nothing, you know, cognizant of the fact that if you sell thousands of millions of phones, you may become so big that that may become an issue. You will no longer have the agility and the nimbleness that you have as a startup?
This is why we put the safeguards since day one, ensuring we have a community board observer. That's the first kind of reality check that happens every quarter. But hopefully not, because, and I think one of our strengths is at the end of the day, we started this company as end users, you know, willing to make products that we are proud of, as simple as it sounds. I can guarantee you there are a lot of companies there that ship products they're not proud of. And I think if, you know, manage to remain true to that and kind of continuously kind of question the user experience, see things from different ways, I'm quite confident we should be heading, and hopefully bringing even community a bit more. What we found out with the co-creation project, you know, we hired the head of design at Dyson, heading up our design studio in London and so on. So we have top-notch designers. Everyone is looking at them, trying to hire them as well, including Apple. But we saw through this project, like all of a sudden, there were all those ideas, like different ways at looking at transparency, different ways on how we could leverage transparency and so on. So I think, you know, really reinforcing that kind of community co-creation into product development in the future more and more, we're continuously able to have fresh ideas and new kind of continuously question how we're looking at things.
The inevitable question now on AI, which I wanted to ask towards the end, Akis, which is, it's now a part of everyone's life. People are still waiting around to see what that big integration is going to look like between phones and AI. Can you paint us a picture of what that's going to look like?
I think when it comes to the AI, to be honest, it's a lot of a buzzword nowadays.
Yeah.
And you know, our take on this is going to change it drastically, everything, to be honest. But there's been a lot of, you know, buzzword, and people are not yet too sure what AI is going to do for me, you know. And so for us, the way we look at it, there are in two ways. One is really anchor it in concrete added value user scenarios. It's not telling you, how the sort of AI engine is working and doing all that in the background and so on and so on, but like anchor AI in a real use case that you kind of see value to kind of, start driving that adoption. And then the other side of things is, how we've been doing things at nothing. Like, okay, what's the nothing way? What's the bolder approach on what AI could do? And there, yeah, stay tuned. We'll have a much bigger things coming up later this year.
Now I want to come to just a couple more questions and then I will open up to the audience. I want to talk about India because there are a lot of things happening here, you know it very well, apart from India being an enormous smartphone market. It's also a place where phones are manufactured. I think in the last financial year, Apple crossed 1 trillion rupees in exports from India of its iPhones. So things are galloping along quite well here in India. How does Nothing see India? Not just as a market, you can talk about Nothing as a market as well, but also as a place where innovation can happen.
I think the opportunity for a brand like Nothing in India is huge. I think, if anything, you guys have been doing a tremendous job. I think you are where eventually China was like 15 years ago in terms of opportunity that everything is getting. So you're definitely in the right country at the moment. There is a lot of things happening, a lot of eyeballs onto India. And for us, no, it's a huge market. Here, like in Europe, we have, in terms of what we define as tech enthusiasts, like about 3% of the population, whereas here in India it's 30%. I'm actually, the questions I get asked about the processor and so on, people are super knowledgeable when it comes to tech. So for us, ever since we started the company, having this kind of big tech enthusiast audience, we had this kind of organic traction from the get-go. And then when it comes to the future, yeah, we have a lot of much bigger plans. So we've been now producing all our smartphones in India, and now we're going to see how we can eventually expand this and even look at kind of international. So there's going to be a lot more happening in India in the next kind of 2 years. And I will also be personally involved a lot more with India because it's such a big opportunity for us. Last year, again, we were the fastest smartphone growing brand here. And I think we're just getting started.
Would you consider making your phones in India? Are there any plans of that kind?
They're already being made in India.
Oh, they are being made in India, right?
They are being made in India. And yeah, looking at, as part of that, even like bigger plans in the short term.
In the days and the weeks gone by, Akis, AI has been a very big headline because of DeepSeek. AI has been seen as this big war that is being fought. In a kind of simplified way, it's being seen as a war being fought between the United States and China. And when DeepSeek emerged, there was a lot of, there was a big meltdown here in India from people who said, why isn't the next big AI thing coming from India? India is a big IT hub. We're in the city that's called the Silicon Valley of India, and yet the next big AI thing has not come from India. I just wanted your perspective as someone who is from outside India but deals so much with India. Why do you think that is? Why isn't the next big AI innovation from India, or why hasn't it happened yet?
That's a good question, but I wouldn't get too much stress about it. I think what happened with, last week, that whole fuzz is like LLMs are getting commoditized, if anything. I think what will matter in the future is the actual application and, going back to the user case we're talking about. But I'm quite confident India should have something in the pipeline. You guys have been doing a lot of fantastic work. I think the kind of engineering students as well, they're huge. We're also thinking about how we could kind of leverage that more into the future. So as of why it hasn't happened out of India, I'm not sure. Is it a big concern? For the future, I'm not sure either, because I think the only thing it proves is like LLMs are getting commoditized, and I think the next big thing when it comes to AI is more about the actual applications, and yeah, not only about LLMs.
Okay, so any questions from the audience? Obviously there will be. Can we get some mics to this young man in the front first? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Yeah. So firstly, I'm a big fan of Nothing, and I really like the branding that you're positioning.
Thank you.
In the starting days, what I remember
Good start.
So in the starting days, what I remember is that Carl Pei, when he had the launching event, he majorly focused on two things. Firstly was the product innovation in terms of designing, and secondly was the willingly or unwillingly you had positioned yourself as the direct competition of Apple. So is it a good thing that when people don't know much about your brand and you suddenly compete with the top brand in terms of smartphones?
I mean, we made a decision ever since we entered the industry, to be honest. And yeah, they are a competition now. I guess it has been going so far so well for us. We're just being focused on things that differentiate us. But yeah, I mean, if your question is if Apple is our competitor, yes. Short term, like, if they're threatened by us, definitely not. But, again, it's more about, how we gradually scale to eventually get there. But yeah, we made a decision ever since we decided to make a smartphone.
Hi, good afternoon. So I'm Vishwardhan from NMIMS University. My question to you is, how should new entrepreneurs counter big players in an oligopolistic industry like smartphone, for example?
Sorry, say that again?
How should new entrepreneurs and young entrepreneurs counter big players in the industry like smartphone or energy?
He answered that, but I'll interpret. He said, how do small players, take on the big players, when they control so much of the market?
Yeah, that was the first part. It's just been a kind of very strategic rollout. Again, focusing on design differentiation, getting that working, raising more money, launching our first smartphone, get that working, internalizing our product capabilities to kind of start driving more innovation when it comes to software. Then we launched Phone 2, and then gradually, it's more like different stage gates. And I think it's for any kind of entrepreneur starting, like balancing short-term and long-term is key, to be honest. You should be quite clear where you're heading, yet understanding what you need to do short-term to even give yourself a chance to get there.
I'll just throw in a quick question before I go to the next one. To the lady there and then the gentleman next to her. Akis, how does Apple view Nothing? Have you heard anything about what they think of you? Obviously, they're looking at you. You may not be competition in the near term.
They're definitely looking at us. They've been hiring from us. They've been. Did you see the Beats transparent edition? Same. That was quite funny to see. Didn't expect that one coming. And the thing again with transparency, it's really hard to get it right, and there is just so much complexity. And one of the things we first kind of stepped upon when we started developing A1 was the glue. Like to kind of glue everything together, and for the glue to not be visible, actually it was very painful to get it right. And when you look at the Beats kind of transparent version, you can see all the glue dripping on the inside and so on. So yeah, it's quite funny to watch, but yeah.
Can I ask? So regarding transparency and carbon footprint and sustainability together, so assuming you have to make decisions, and what factors would you make you decide between a set of vendors who are sustainable, and you get your electronic fabrication and all kinds of components for your phone that is high on the sustainability ranking, as opposed to cost effective? Do you have to make that decision? What would be the factors that you decide? Thank you.
That's a great question, and it's a bit of a dilemma that we've been kind of working towards ever since we started, because there is this company called Fairphones, and it's like everything's sustainable and so on, but they don't sell any smartphones. So eventually they have that kind of positioning, but no one is using their products. So for us, it's just ensuring we kind of, what can we do short term? Well, again, kind of building towards the long term. And to be honest, we could go with partners that have full recycled material but much more expensive components. But eventually you bring a product where the product market fit is totally off, and then you go bankrupt. So whatever good intention you had going into this, if you don't survive, you cannot change things. So for us, ever since day one, it's been continuously striving towards kind of reducing this carbon footprint, yet having the right judgment calls to ensure we don't put off the product market fit. Because even from a user standpoint, to be honest, a lot of people are talking about sustainability. If I tell you someone, are you ready to pay $50 extra to have a more sustainable phone, I'm quite confident 99% of the people will say no. So I think it's more about making the right judgment calls, yet kind of looking at the bigger vision to ensure you scale. Because again, this game is all about scale. So once you have the scale, then you have the ability to change and drive the change, especially across the supply chain.
Hey, Akis. Thank you. Great insights. And my 14-year-old son is a great fan of nothing. So you have made
Amazing.
something right.
The right target as well.
Yes, yes. So he's a great fan of both of you, Carl and yourself. Anyway, my question is a generic question. So every time I install an app, it asks for almost all kinds of permission that my phone can give. Photos, memories, blah, 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 blah. Now, every time I come to any such discussion, data privacy and security is a big part of the discussion. While I as a user want personalized services, but I don't feel comfortable giving all kinds of permissions. The question to you is, how do you see smartphone makers like yourself will evolve to address this issue of privacy, maybe decentralized processing or differentiated kind of algorithms? I don't know, and that's how the future of data privacy and security should evolve to address this concern. Users want privacy, but don't want to give permission, or wants to get the confidence that it is not going to be misused.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely part of the job to ensure, we have those kind of, all those privacy concerns addressed. But actually, towards the younger demographic, not me or yourself, people are not so much worried about data privacy versus the potential kind of value that it's going to kind of bring to them. And I think the real stake here, especially when we go into AI, can real use case where we're bringing strong value to users kind of eradicate some of those concerns? Because of course, you're not in control, it's like tech, you don't understand. So I think that concern will remain. Even though we say we do X, Y, Z, that concern towards data privacy will always be there. But quite confident that it's more about ensuring we deliver the right set of value to the users, and eventually people will become less and less, they should still be concerned, I think, but overall that's not top of mind. And I think currently there is, to your point, we're getting asked all those questions and all that, and we're like, what the hell, what is that for? Whereas eventually, feeding more and more data into AI will bring a lot of added value to yourself in the future. Having a much more kind of proactive experience, and all of a sudden, you'll see that value coming to you, okay, and you will be more open as well to kind of share that data to ensure you have a continuous improved experience. But I think that's where the sort of balance lies. It's now we're being asked and all those cookies and so on, but we don't really know the value that translates out of that. So I think that's how we're looking at things.
I knew someone was going to ask about privacy. That's why I didn't ask it in my questions. But
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. I'll come to you next.
Hi, I'm Mahanta from Gizbot. In fact, we have been covering nothing quite a bit on Gizbot. So my question to you is about the upcoming 3A series of nothing. That's, I guess,
my man, sloppy territory.
Yeah, so I guess the Chennai facility has about 90 to 95% of women workforce there. So do you see some kind of a, inclusivity or women empowerment also coming into, your kind of communication while, coming into India?
So your question, if we see inclusivity and women empowerment?
Yes, that's because your Chennai facility, which is producing the 3A series, has 95% of the women folk working there. So I guess, is it?
No, it's an important part, and it's been quite refreshing as well, because I've been to many factories in my life, and I visited Chennai last year, and I think it was such a fantastic trip, to be honest. So no, it's something important. It's great to see more women involved in the tech space at every level, and starting with the Chennai factory as well. I think this space needs more women, so we should definitely try to empower that and enforce it.
You know, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka have a huge investment war right now as far as who can get the maximum investment from smartphone companies. You've got a factory in Chennai. Are you planning to do anything here in Karnataka?
We'll see. But a lot of discussions.
The lady in orange.
Yes, thank you so much. Hello, Akis. So my question is, I see a lot of young crowd here. So my question is, how do Nothing approaches hiring right now? So do you look at traditional B school education, or do you look at the unconventional part? So what would be your take or your advice to the young students who are into business management education right now? How do you think they can skill themselves, to face challenges which are unconventional and mostly not taught in theory?
What does this generation need to do to get a job at Nothing?
That's the easiest way of putting it.
I mean, to be honest, I mean, my career has been, I'm not the sort of college dropout that did some crazy stuff outside of my garage and eventually built a unicorn. I did a placement year at Universal Pictures, and I started working at Sony. That was my first job. And eventually, I was looking for a job because I didn't like the sort of 9 to 5 at Sony. And what company contacted me called OnePulse. It was inside a company. But at first, when I typed OnePulse on the Google search, the first company that came up was OnePlus. And it was right at the beginning where they started the invitation system and so on. So for me, I was working in the smartphone business, and it made sense that they reach out and eventually for a job. So I got super excited because I started reading about OnePlus. And then I realized they didn't have any offices in London, whereas the interview was supposed to be in London. And I went back to the interview, and it had nothing to do. It was OnePulse. And I'm like, shit, I got so hyped up about OnePlus. So I just sent my CV. They were excited that someone from Sony was willing to kind of join them. So 2 weeks after, I was in the plane to Shenzhen and started off there. And then that's where I met Carl and everything happened. So I guess my recommendation is you'll see a lot of like big entrepreneurs and extremely kind of smart people and doing their own things and so on. But also don't be afraid about where you are today. The fact that you are here today is a good first step. Get out there, get curious, meet people, and life is funny. It will get things right at some point.
Excuse me. Can I? Yeah. Good afternoon, Akis. I wanted to ask you, for exactly a layman here in India at least, I feel like we know nothing phones as in with the LEDs that are behind, right? That's how it is marketed really well here in India at least. So what I wanted to ask is, as that turns into a normalized state, that we all know that nothing has those lights, post that, while you are doing your 3A or 4A upcoming smartphones, what would be your marketing strategy there?
There are a lot of elements in your question. One is the product strategy, and then eventually how you eventually market that. To your point, when you talk about the glyph interface, was a amazing thing coming from product strategy in terms of like driving that level of interest, especially in the space where all the phones look the same, and also from a shareability element, in terms of social value. every kind of, from one users were like, oh shit, look at this. So it really helped. But from a product standpoint, when it comes to nothing, gradually, it's not just about this kind of phone with lights. Actually, it's a much kind of bigger vision in terms of where things are heading, and gradually what happened year after year, like we've been really able to have a product offering quite unique, both on how the product looks, but also on the software side of things. And that's what we're seeing now, even people using our software and so on. That's the sort of favorite feature. So that's how we've been thinking about product development, how we continuously bring the sort of hardware design and user interface innovation, and gradually, as we have stronger product capabilities, do more and innovate more from that front. Especially with AI coming up, we have huge opportunities. And then from a marketing standpoint, I think for us, again, it's just kind of ensuring that we keep on driving those asymmetrical, I'm not sure if you were a bit earlier when I talk about the asymmetrical advantages in terms of really understanding, especially Gen Zs, what kind of resonates across them. So, authenticity, transparency, relatable brand, and this is why, you can see all our content, YouTube, and so on. We've been doing a lot of that. And then eventually, if the product is good, people kind of trust and relate to the company, then it can easily become a home run.
We have time for just a few more questions, 2 or 3 maybe. Keep them short, please.
Yeah, thanks a lot for giving me this chance. First of all, I'd really like to congratulate on Nothing's positioning in the market. It's taken everything by storm. And my question is, because you are the source of marketing at Nothing, so my question is a little bit regarding that. Since Nothing is so minimalistic yet innovative, I wanted to understand, how did you identify the psychological triggers as well as behavioral patterns in the community that you guys built around? And like, what drove you towards it, and how did you identify that you could create a brand around it?
I wish it was such a scientific approach, but actually, not really. I think what was quite important when we started the company, and I had an earlier session I was talking about this, was brand. Brand, a lot of people, it comes as an afterthought, or thinking that brand is just about being recognized, but actually brand is at the core of your company. And as part of brand, there are 2 different parts. One is like, what's the sort of story, what you're trying to solve as a brand. And for us, it has always been clear, we're here to make tech fun again. We wanted to kind of satisfy those inner childs within us, that grew up and got excited about all those tech launch, and that had gone. So this was a line from the get-go. And then by really talking about this, we all of a sudden saw that a lot of people were feeling the exact same way. And then after is just building an identity and ensuring all your user touch points are super coherent. And that's where the whole transparency also kind of came from. We wanted to kind of bring people and technology closer together, kind of build that emotional bond with your tech product, not for you to look at it as a commodity. So for us, going the sort of transparent route was also kind of building back that relationship with your tech product. And then after is just our color palette, the blue, the red, those came from the inspiration from the IBM mainframe era, where people were super excited about tech. So I think it's just having that kind of very strong alignment from the get-go among the team. I remember, crazy story, we had part of the co-founding team, we brought in Teenage Engineering. It's a Swedish firm, probably the best. They do also some tech products across audio, but they're by far the best designers in the world. And Jesper Kuktov, their CEO, he's just such a talented guy and a visionary. And basically, when we start bouncing off transparency, what he did, he kind of went off for like a month. So we thought, oh, okay, maybe he got cold feet, maybe he doesn't want to do this anymore. And then around Christmas, all the co-founding team will receive the book this thick. And it had all the visual identity, the typography, the inspiration, and even the design of font to A that we released 4 years after was in that book. So I think looking back, having that super strong alignment in terms of what we're trying to solve and ensuring that sort of consistency across all the touch points, whether it's product, marketing, even our marketing, we're super transparent, we're super chill, we don't have, we're not PR trained, we're quite open in terms of how we talk about things. So everything flows super naturally, to be honest. And people, I guess, they like that.
So just an addition to this, so as Nothing is planning to scale...
I need to give somebody else a chance, please. Please. And we're out of time, so this is absolutely the last question. Yeah, here. Short. Very, very short.
Hello sir, I'm Yashis. Sir, why did Nothing choose UFS 2.2 storage type for phone 2A instead of 3.1? Like most of your competitors in mid-range segment use 3.1. So why did you do that?
I think history told us it was eventually the right decision. I mean, when it comes to product development, there is just so many considerations to be made, including the product definition and how you kind of positioning, how you spec it, and so on. But for us, we look, again, first and foremost, from a user experience standpoint, we consider ourselves as users, so we always want to be shipping products we're proud of. And yeah, there are some spec warriors that kind of, say, oh, you should have done this, then that. But at the end of the day, Phone 2A was our best-selling phone. The NPS score is the best as well. So overall user experience was there. Like, put aside the sort of spec-to-spec aspect of it, the overall user experience delivered on what we promised. And I think that's where there has to be hopefully a mind shift. I think it's not anymore about the specs war, but the actual user experience. That's how, and all those decisions are being made taking shit ton of parameters. So yeah, history proved it was eventually the right call. But we can always, of course, have the latest, the greatest, and so on, but that comes also at certain costs, certain implications, which I guess market won't necessarily understand all the time, but at the end of the day, again, it comes down to the actual output and overall user experience. And yeah.
Akis bhai, thank you very much. Wish you all the very best. Big round of applause for Akis.
Also a bigger round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Shiv as well. Bhai, aap yahan rukho. And Akis bhai, please stay here. We'd like to acknowledge your presence. Ladies and gentlemen, once more, a huge round of applause. Thank you so much for moderating it so well. Once more, ladies and gentlemen, wasn't the session good? Yeah, show that with your round of applause. Thank you so much, gentlemen.